this is Apple Music, this is Spotify, and this is YouTube Music. These three are the most popular music streaming services, but which one is better? Well, there isn't really a definite answer. All three of them have their own strengths and weaknesses, and my goal is to help you decide on which one fits your needs perfectly. So, I'm going to break this video down into 6 topics: pricing, compatibility, audio quality, recommendations and playlists, social features, and user experience. Let's start with pricing, arguably the most important factor. All three platforms roughly cost the same in most regions. They have the same type of plans as well: individual, family, and student. If you get the Apple Music student plan, you get access to Apple TV Plus as well, if you care about that. But if you pay a little bit more for YouTube Premium instead of just YouTube Music, you get both ad-free YouTube videos and a music streaming service. Let's be real, YouTube Premium is the most worth it subscription of all time. Now, both Spotify and YouTube Music have a free tier, but it's not really great. Both have ads and behave in weird ways. Spotify has a limit on how many songs you can skip per hour. It doesn't let you play a specific song. You can't seek while it's playing a song. It's almost like using a radio. YouTube Music has none of those limitations, but you can't play music in the background. What? At least YouTube Music's free tier is tolerable compared to Spotify's. Of course, both don't let you download music in the free tier to play offline. Now, let's talk about compatibility. All three platforms work on both Android and iOS, but only Apple Music and Spotify have dedicated apps on Windows and macOS, whereas YouTube Music just runs through a browser on computers. But it's not just computers. Apple Music and Spotify work on TVs, smart speakers, gaming consoles. They also work well with a bunch of music-related services. YouTube Music technically exists on TVs, but through the YouTube app. Now, if you only care about streaming music on your phone, all three do the job. But if you care about broader compatibility, Apple Music and Spotify are the better options. Now, let's get to the big one: audio quality. And Apple Music is the clear winner here. It can stream at lossless or high-res lossless formats and also has Dolby Atmos support, which I'd argue makes a lot of difference to the listening experience. Meanwhile, Spotify tops out at 320 kilobits per second and YouTube Music tops out at 256 kilobits per second. Now, if you care about audio quality and can tell the difference, Apple Music is the easy choice. Spotify was supposed to bring a hi-fi tier which offered lossless audio, but it's been 4 years since Spotify announced it and it's still not out.
Wow.
And even if it comes out, Spotify Hi-Fi was supposed to be a separate plan that costs more. Meanwhile, Apple offers lossless and high-res lossless audio with every plan. But all of this lossless and high-res lossless conversation doesn't matter if you use wireless earphones, which yes, most people do. Most wireless earphones stream at the same quality as YouTube Music. There are some which can take advantage of lossless wirelessly. For example, some Samsung earphones can stream lossless audio with some Galaxy phones. But if it doesn't matter to you, all three platforms sound similar with wireless earphones and it's hard to nitpick a difference. Apple Music sounds slightly better with wireless earphones due to it sampling from a higher quality source, but I doubt most people will notice it. Now, if you use an iPhone and AirPods, Dolby Atmos aka spatial audio will make a noticeable difference on Apple Music. Now, you can use spatial audio on any phone with any earphones, but if you want dynamic head tracking, you can only do that with an iPhone and AirPods, and the experience is really good. Spatial audio is one of my favorite features with Apple Music. But when it comes to recommendations, everything flips upside down. Apple Music has by far the worst recommendation algorithm. It's not so terrible that it's unusable, but the recommendations just don't make sense sometimes. Like, let's say I was listening to a hip-hop song. The song that would autoplay after that specific song would be completely unrelated to that genre. Sometimes it will also play songs that I might have asked it to suggest less. It's not like I just started using Apple Music. I've been using Apple Music for 4 years now, yet my recommendations are just all over the place. But as much as I make it sound bad, it's not so terrible. Just don't expect to find new songs or something you would have not expected to be recommended on Apple Music. Meanwhile, Spotify and YouTube Music are just the best in this regard. I know that my recommendations are going to be very relevant to my music taste on these platforms no matter what. I discovered new music thanks to both Spotify and YouTube Music. But recommendations are just one part of the story. Playlists, on the other hand, are very similar between all three platforms. They all have the same personalized mixes or playlists based on moods, but the main difference is on who is curating them. Apple leans more into artists or DJs curating these playlists. Meanwhile, Spotify relies on algorithmic playlists that change based on your habits, and YouTube Music does a mix of both. When it comes to playlists, Spotify is the clear winner here. Apple Music and YouTube Music don't prioritize playlists as much as Spotify, which will be evident once we get to user experience. Now, both Apple Music and Spotify have radio, but Spotify's radio is just a curated playlist. Meanwhile, Apple Music has live radio that is hosted by a bunch of well-known celebrities. But let's talk about social features, and YouTube Music has none.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, that's just a rough way to put it. All three platforms have collaborative playlists or public playlists, but that's just about it for YouTube Music. At least Apple Music lets you add and see what your friends are listening to, or let you listen to music together through a share play session. Spotify does everything that Apple Music can do, but has one extra feature that I personally like: Spotify Blend, where it creates a playlist based on you and your friends' listening history. And it doesn't stop there, it creates these blend stories where it talks about how much percentage of the same taste you and your friend have, and what's that one song that brings both of you together. You can also have multiple people in your blend, and the stories get crazier. It compares who you have the closest match with and who you have the least match with in terms of music. Speaking of stories, all three platforms have their own yearly recap playlists that have the same type of stories based concept, and Spotify Wrapped is the best one compared to all three. Let's talk about the final one: user experience. Now, all three obviously play music, duh, and all three do have well-designed apps, but they have their own pros and cons. Apple Music is very simple and easy to navigate. Everything is separated into its own tab, but one thing I do want to highlight is that Apple prioritizes your library more than recommendations or curated playlists. Your library is the first thing that appears when you open Apple Music. Apple Music has the best now playing interface compared to the other two. Their lyrics are very accurate and also time-synced perfectly. You can also turn any song into a karaoke version on an iPhone. But let's get to Apple Music's cons. The app isn't particularly great on every platform. It's great on the iPhone, iPad, and even Android. Decent on Windows and downright terrible on the Mac. Yes, it's terrible on Apple's own platform. And it's also terrible with continuity. Well, there's none to begin with. Apple has great continuity features with their products. But why does Apple Music have none? Why can't I resume playing the song I was playing on my phone, on my Mac, or iPad? Like, why? Now let's get to Spotify. Their interface is designed more with quick access to your most recently played playlist or album. But after that, it's just playlist, playlists, and playlists. Yes, Spotify prioritizes playlists more than anything else. But Spotify is just very consistent on every platform. It looks and functions the same on everything. Not just that, Spotify Connect is by far the best feature to exist on Spotify. It lets you resume playing a song from your phone on your laptop or vice versa. Or lets you control what's playing on your laptop from your phone. Or anything for that matter. But let's get to Spotify's cons. The lyrics are downright terrible. Their library management is just trash. And downloading music from Spotify is just annoying. I can't download a specific song unless I add it to a playlist that is stored offline, or download a whole album when I don't want to.
Wow.
Finally, YouTube Music. I believe they strike the best balance between Apple Music and Spotify's interface. You can quickly access songs that you'd have recently played, then it just suggests playlists or new music. They also have this feature called Samples, which helps you discover new songs through a YouTube short style format. It's actually pretty good. The app is also very consistent between Android and iOS. Well, technically it's the only platforms where it exists on. Personally, one of my favorite things with YouTube Music is its catalog. It's not just songs from artists, but remixes, covers, or leaks. The catalog is just infinitely better than both Apple Music and Spotify. YouTube Music just has a few cons. The app just looks bland. The app is also very buggy sometimes, and it also prioritizes music videos a lot for some reason. I'm not saying the app is perfect compared to both Apple Music and Spotify, but it has very less cons that I can point really. And yes, no social features if you care about that. So here's my overall verdict. All three platforms are good, but it's just at certain things where one of them excel. If you're strictly looking for a platform with the best audio quality, Apple Music. If you're looking for one with great social features and playlists, Spotify. But if you just want one that streams music and don't care about the bells and whistles, YouTube Music. Personally, I use Apple Music and YouTube Music. Apple Music has the best audio quality and YouTube Music has great recommendations and a huge catalog of songs. And that's about it. Watch this video to see why Apple Intelligence is a mess.